All right. Peace and love, everyone. Welcome back to the Healing Cypher on this Monday Moon Day. I am your host, Queen Tamara. Welcome, everybody. And tonight we're exploring something very vital for our lives, and that's making a decision about our energy supplier. And, the last few shows, we've been talking a lot about the environment and the climate issues that we're facing. This is all a part of our healing too on the Healing Cypher because we cover everything when it comes to healing. And it's very important where we get our energy, what kind of energy we're using. We're trying to move towards a cleaner, renewable source of energy for ourselves and for our planet and not rely so heavily on fossil fuels as they did in times past. Many of us are still relying on fossil fuels for energy, and they're not the safest for the environment, and they can be very costly. So, today we're going to be talking about solar energy. Solar energy is a more sustainable form of energy, lower cost, it's clean, and it's renewable, family. So, tonight we're going to learn about this form of energy and how it can benefit us and the planet, and how it can also benefit us economically. So, join me and welcoming our beloved guest, King Lloyd Wynn of Colby Solar. Welcome, my brother. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, please share a little bit about yourself with the listening audience.
Well, okay. I live in Maryland. I'm married
Mm-hmm.
and been married for 28 years.
Okay, nice.
And I work every day. I started, I guess I'll start with how you and I met.
Okay.
And that was some years ago. But
Mm-hmm.
leading up to that, I was working in financial services
Mm-hmm.
and primarily in the secondary market where we did securitizations. We bought and sold portfolios for failed institutions. And we did some projects around DC for HUD, SBA, and FDIC. And I think you and I met probably around 2005, six, seven, somewhere around
Somewhere
there.
around seven. Yeah, somewhere
Yeah,
around six,
somewhere
7.
around 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was winding down my career when we met, and I started this mortgage company.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I started it as a school initially to train loan officers, processors, underwriters, due diligence personnel. And in 2007 and 8, 2008, the subprime market crashed.
Yes.
And so I did not go back into the financial services industry. I began to look at ways to sustain myself. And I was doing that through training, primarily construction. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I guess you say you went from financial services to construction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't teach the courses, but I developed the courses.
Mm-hmm.
And at that same time, around 2008, 9, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act was implemented in order to pump some money, into the economy because of the crash of '08. And so in that act, President Obama put, I think it was like 125 million in green collar job training.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so what we did at Anchor Renaissance Institute, we developed a course to train people how to install solar, how to do energy audits, and how to do weatherization. And fortunately, that was the first course certified by the Department of Labor for
Mm-hmm.
funding to train people for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we got our start. That was our first renewable energy project, teaching people how to
Mm-hmm.
install solar, how to
Mm-hmm.
do energy audits.
Yes.
And from there, the students graduated around 2010, 2011, but there were no jobs in solar like there are now.
Mm-hmm.
The guys had taken this course, spent a lot of time doing this course, but there were no jobs. And so what I made a vow at that time to do was never again train people unless there was a job attached to the end of it. And
Good idea.
so yeah, because it just I saw so many people doing that. I said I would never do it, but it happened. There were no jobs. And so what I began to do was look at ways to create opportunities, to create jobs for people.
Right.
And so thus began my trek in 2012 to search for ways to create opportunities. And I started to look at manufacturing. And so in looking at manufacturing, I had to look overseas because there were not many manufacturers of solar in the United States.
Right.
There were only maybe 4 or 5 at that time. And so I began to contact companies overseas, develop relationships with companies overseas, and in Europe and primarily India.
Okay.
And a few in China. We developed some relationships. But in 2016, I was introduced to a company called Navitas, Navitas. And so it was in August of 2016, Navitas and I began to develop a relationship. And over the years, we talked about doing a joint venture because they wanted to come to the United States and I wanted to do manufacturing. And so in February of this year, there was a solar conference out in California in Long Beach. And so we decided that this was the year we were going to establish our joint venture. We were going to do a joint venture together in the United States. So they said they were going to come to the conference. They came to the conference in Long Beach. We met out there and we began to develop our agreement. And so in March, our team went to India and they spent about 8 days in India touring their factory, looking at how they do, how they do things, how they run their factory. And in June, they came over here. And so we met again out in St. Louis. And we completed our agreement. And last month, September the 13th, we went to Vegas. There was another conference in Vegas, the Industry Association, SEIA, Solar Energy Industry Association, had their conference in Las Vegas.
Yes.
So we went out to Las Vegas 2 weeks ago. And that is when we did our press release. We made an announcement that we were going to start the manufacturing process and begin in June of 24. We should have solar rolling off the factories, rolling off the line.
Oh, wow.
June. And that's kind of aggressive, but no later than August, we will have.
Oh, it'll definitely happen. It'll definitely happen. Now, can you share with the listening audience just a little quick definition or explanation? What is solar energy? Because there's a lot of misinformation out there about what solar energy is.
Okay. Solar energy is actually rays from the sun that strikes a cell within a panel and it creates the DC current, and then that current is it's changed to an AC current, which is what we use. And essentially that's what solar is. So the rays from the sun hitting a cell or microchip, a solar cell, which is what produces the energy. That energy is converted to DC,
Electricity, right.
right? And then that DC is converted to, through an inverter, is converted to DC. And that's how you get electricity in a
All
very
right. Okay.
simplified fashion. That's what it is.
So it's also a renewable, clean
Absolutely.
form of energy as well. Okay.
Yes, it's renewable because the sun is always going to be here. If the sun is not here, we're not going to be here. So it's renewable. Yes, absolutely. It's constant. It's there forever.
Right. So do you since we're facing this climate crisis on the planet right now, do you think that the solar energy not only is it safer and renewable, but you think this is a better form of energy for us and the
Absolutely.
planet?
Without a doubt. Because what we have noticed and witnessed over the last 20 years or so are the weather patterns and how extreme they are becoming. And reason being is because of the climate change. The climate is heating up. The earth is heating up.
Yes.
And it's heating up as a result of all of us, our activity, our behavior, releasing so much carbon into the atmosphere, through primarily through fossil fuels, but there are other ways also. And so in doing so, we have created a situation where the waters are warm. And so we get these different and extreme weather patterns. For instance, what we just witnessed in Manhattan, in New York.
Yes, that was extreme.
Yes, that was extreme. And then what we witnessed in Hawaii. About 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago in Hawaii, they had the fires. They had those fires in Hawaii. And then, a couple of years ago in Texas, they had the freeze.
Yes, that big freeze. I remember that now.
These are the results of global warming. So to answer your question, if we transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy, what we will do is release less carbon into the atmosphere. And maybe we can begin to decrease the amount of carbon, and maybe we can reverse some of these extreme conditions that we are witnessing.
All right, good answer. Can solar energy totally replace the use of fossil fuels? Can it be used for all of our energy needs?
It can be, but will it do that?
Okay.
I don't think it's going to do that. And on a very practical level, I think what we need is some diversity in our energy mix. For instance, a certain amount of solar, a certain amount of wind, certain amount of water, or hydro, and maybe even some nuclear. But I think that will get us closer to net zero, rather than just trying to do it all by solar. Solar occupies or takes up so much of the space of the land, and we don't want our earth covered in solar, because it is the plants, it's the plants that helps us to it decreases the amount of carbon. And if we take up all the green, then we're just defeating the purpose. So I think we need a mix of solar, wind, and bio and so forth. I don't think we should do it all with solar.
Okay. Is it a cheaper form of energy? Because that's one thing when I went to a workshop last August on solar panels and solar installation, and that was one of the main things that people ask about solar energy is it cheaper? Is it cost effective? Is it going to help me save money? Is it better on the pocket than what we have been using?
Now it is. Like I stated in 2012, in those days, it wasn't. Excuse me, it was much more costlier, but the cost of solar has come down tremendously. And it is a cheaper form, a less expensive form of energy. And now, with the incentives that is given by governmental agencies, solar is actually becoming affordable.
Okay, good.
But per kilowatt hour, solar is less expensive than fossils.
Yes, and renewable too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about your company, though, Colby Solar. So tell us a little bit about your company, how you got started, and everything.
Okay. Well, so back in 2002, that is how when I first became interested in solar. You know my wife, Leslie. She was in a program at Johns Hopkins for real estate development, and she was required to attend the solar decathlon they have on the mall every year. And so the Department of Energy sponsors these decathlons where people come from all over the world to exhibit their project. They have these various projects they do with solar, these universities. And so the first one was in 2002, and I attended with my wife, and I've been fascinated with solar ever since that time in 2002. Fast forward to last year,
20 years ago. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That was 20 years ago, because I know people weren't talking about it as much as they are now.
Oh, absolutely. Now, when I used to talk about solar, people would look at me like I had a third eye.
I know.
And so, you're absolutely. And not only that, being a person of color, being a black man, we didn't talk about it, but sister, you understand, you know better than most of us that our people are spiritual people, and they have always had a love for the earth.
Yes.
It was only this Western society that decided to commoditize everything, but we had a respect for the earth. And so naturally, we are environmentalists. It's just that we've gotten away from that. And so we I decided to establish a company, Colby, which is Colby Solar. But the name of our company that is involved in manufacturing is Navitas USA by Colby. And that is the company. And
Navitas USA by Colby. Okay.
Right. So that's the name of the joint venture and the one that is doing the manufacturing. Yes.
Okay.
Now, Colby Solar is our company, and what we primarily focus on is how to get solar to underserved communities. And we have some initiatives that we are working on to do that. But that's Colby Solar. Yes.
Okay. You write that down. So to get it to, you said underserved communities.
Yes.
Okay.
Because, typically we're the last ones to get to learn, to access, and so forth. And so Colby Solar is that entity that is going to have the impact on our community in order to bring our community along to help them with that transition. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. That is good news. That's good news, because a lot of the environmental decisions in the past have, like you said, have not been relegated to certain communities, or communities that of color oftentimes were the last to receive any kind of notice, or community comment period, or anything surrounding decisions being made about energy or the environment. So that's good that you are working to provide this resource to underserved communities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. If you look at I, I, 2009, when
Mm-hmm.
the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act put the money into uh, the community, what it did, it allocated the monies or the funds at that time through their traditional sources,
Mm-hmm.
right? And traditional sources, for the most part, have excluded underserved communities and people of color.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, that money came down and was to the community, not our community, but to the cities. But again, it was done in traditional ways. And if one understands traditional ways, they know that these institutions are,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, they are biased,
You're
and
right.
and they favor others. They don't favor us. So as a result, we don't get access to that. And that's what I saw in 2009, 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why this time, with the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was passed, and with the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act and so forth, I
Mm-hmm.
decided I'm going to take the initiative to ensure that underserved communities gain access to this money, also
Mm-hmm.
capital
Yes.
available.
So
Mhm.
that's the environmental justice part. Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
Can you share with us how this um, helps support economic growth and development?
Sure. Yes. Really. Thank you for asking that, because that's something that we focus on is
Mhm.
economic development. Now, because there is such a huge and enormous sum of money that are
Mhm.
available for the environment or for climate change or economic justice, there's a lot of competition for that money.
Okay.
And so, what we have decided to do, not Navitas USA by Colby, but Colby Solar. What Colby Solar has decided to do is to implement or create some opportunities or pathways to access this funding. And so that is what we will be doing over the next few years, is bringing people through this pathway to
Mhm.
access the capital that's available in those laws that were passed
Mhm.
over the last 2 years. And,
Mhm.
and there are huge sums of capital money available or funding available
Mhm.
for work in this area. So if someone wants to transition from what they're doing now, or they want to supplement what they're doing now, we've created this pathway, and we have two initiatives.
Mhm.
One is for um, solar developers, and we
Okay.
take a person to show them how to develop a project. And one is for manufacturers rep, a representative for our factory. And if you look at it, manufacturer reps, they are at the in the upper echelon of salespeople. They make substantially more than salespeople, and they're called manufacturers reps, but they are just salespeople for the manufacturer, and they have great opportunities to
Mhm.
a very decent and livable income.
Okay. And what was the other position you said before? You said
Solar,
manufacturer,
solar developers,
solar
solar
developers.
developers, correct. Mhm. Develop projects, identify and develop projects for solar.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you said something about workforce development.
Right. That's the training. Those are the two tracks that we're going to train people for. That's workforce development, the training. But let me share with you why we think
Yes.
we can provide this pathway. And I say this with all humility, sister.
Mm-hmm.
We are the first Black-owned solar manufacturing plant in North America.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the US, but in North America, the very first one. And he who controls the supply has an opportunity or an advantage to create other opportunities to, let's say, scale up or to make the economy within those underserved communities more
Mm-hmm.
robust and alive. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you have the supply, it's supply that's important. And let me give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
After World War II, uh, the German economy and the Japanese economy were decimated
Mm-hmm.
after World War II. By the late 50s, Japan and Germany were in the top 10 economies in the world. Now,
Mm-hmm.
from 45, let's say to 58,
Mm-hmm.
13 years. It took them 13 years to go from the bottom to the top 10 economies in the world. Took them 13 years.
Okay.
Okay. And fast go from the late 50s to 73,
Mm-hmm.
they were number 4 and number 6 economies in the world. And just the span of 30 years, they went from the bottom to being 2 of the top 6 economies in the world.
Mm-hmm.
How did they
Mm-hmm.
do it? They did it through manufacturing. That's what they were doing. That's how they brought themselves. That's how they raised their economy through manufacturing. Of course, they
Manufacturing.
had the incentives through the Marshall Plan and so forth, but they did it via manufacturing. And I believe that we as a people, as a group, we could do the same thing, but we need to produce something other than drama. And,
Right.
you know,
True.
we do. And because we consume a lot, but we produce very little. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we do drama literally and figuratively. We produce it,
Yes.
you know. And so I think through manufacturing, we have an opportunity to have an impact on the underground economies that exist
Mm-hmm.
within our neighborhood. Our communities, we can bring those people out of the underground economies, bring them aboard. So
Right.
anyway.
That's good. Good. That's
Mhm,
great. Okay. And so that's for the economic development, which
mhm.
is very crucial because you want to introduce something that has long lasting effects.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So let me share just a little something about the markets and why I say there are opportunities here
Yes, please.
for this. Okay, so the United States uses what we consider about 30 gigawatts for 23. It's estimated that America will use about 30 gigawatts or 32 gigawatts of solar.
Mm-hmm.
Gigawatt is a billion watts, right? So
Okay.
they will use about 32 billion watts of solar. Now, domestically, we only produce about 23% of that.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it comes from primarily 4 countries: Malaysia,
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia.
Okay.
So that's coming from them. And of course, the Biden administration says these 4 countries are proxies for China. And so what the administration has done, well, if you go back to June of 22, the administration gave a waiver to those 4 countries. When I say gave a waiver, there's supposed to be a tariff, tax on panels that are coming from those 4 countries.
Okay.
The Biden administration waived that tax because the solar industry said, if we can't get panels in the United States, we're going to lose 200,000 jobs in the solar industry if we can't get panels in. And domestic production is only 25% of the demand. So where those panels?
We had a little technical issue, fam. Stay tuned, sit tight. Hopefully he will log back in. And there he is.
Okay. So demand far outstrips what we are able to produce. And so if one is able to stand up or to establish manufacturing, there's enough demand out there to make your money, to pay for whatever it is that you're trying to do. But let me share. The supply is what is important, the supply. And with these bills that were passed, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, the CHIP bill, they have bonuses for developers who are using domestic made panels. They have bonuses for those. But I know I'm skipping, but let me get back.
No, it's fine.
Can I finish the point I was making before?
Absolutely.
About the waiver of the taxes. So the Biden administration in June of 22, waived those tariffs on those 4 countries so we could have enough solar to meet the demand, the current demand. But what they did, they waived them for 2 years. They waived the taxes for 2 years. Simultaneously, Biden invoked the Defense Production Act. Remember when they were making the vaccine, they invoked the Defense Production Act in order to make the vaccines very quickly. Well, so that's what they have done with the solar production, the manufacturing. They invoked the Defense Production Act so they could quickly scale up domestic production, and they wouldn't have to get the solar from those 4 countries. They would produce it all. That's what they're trying to do. And so that's why I said there are so many opportunities in solar, but it's like any other industry. You have to have someone to point you in the right direction, to create a pathway through that industry. And that's what Colby Solar is doing. It has created a pathway to bring people who have zero knowledge about solar, to bring them in so they can begin to access some of the funding that's available.
Wonderful, wonderful. That sounds very promising, very, very. And it's good that we're getting on board in this country with this new renewable form of energy. Well, it's not new because sun's always been around.
Absolutely.
But just not being put to use as much as some of the others.
That's right.
Okay.
And so some may be surprised to know that it was the solar panels that powered the first shuttles, the space shuttles.
Yes, that's true.
And so that's when solar came around. But you're right, solar has been around since the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the way that the older societies used to construct their buildings, they
Mm-hmm.
would construct their buildings in a way where they would get the sunlight to warm their buildings, to heat
Yes.
the buildings, and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. People use the sunlight more judiciously in those days. But we
Yes.
have these we have air conditioners now and all of this, so we don't pay as much attention to how we construct our buildings with regards to heating and sunlight and so forth.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. And so this will change and revolutionize, you think, the way that we use energy?
Solar.
Yes.
Oh, definitely. It's going to. And here's the great thing, sister. This is what
Mm-hmm.
I really look forward to, because there is a emphasis on renewable energy now.
Mm-hmm.
People are coming up with all different kinds of ideas, and they are being accepted, and they are being financed in the industry today, because by nature, we are very creative people.
Mm-hmm.
So once we orient ourselves to this, I know we're going to create some great things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know,
Yes.
and I'm talking about those people who have been marginalized for the most part.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Um, we're gonna wrap the today's show up a little early. And you have any more closing comments? And then also, can you share with people your contact information at the website so that they know how to reach you if they are curious or interested in, more about the manufacturing?
Okay. So that's one piece, but as I stated, there's Colby Solar that is
Mhm.
working with the underserved communities. And here's something I want to talk about very
Yeah.
briefly. So we have a coalition that we are building called the Virtual Power Plant Coalition, VPP Coalition.
Virtual Power Plant Coalition.
Right. And I'll explain what a virtual power plant is. Virtual power plant is what the Department of Energy calls those distributive energy resources. And what that is: solar panels, battery storage, and energy management software. Those three
Okay.
items. That's a virtual power plant. And this is how it operates. So you install the solar,
Mm-hmm.
have the battery there for storage. So during the day, while the panels are collecting the energy from the sun and converting it to electricity, is stored in the battery during the day. Okay. As you know, from the hours of 3:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., that's when the energy is used the most. Those are the peak hours. People
Mm-hmm.
come home from work, school,
Yeah.
they turn on their devices, turn on their appliances, all of that. That's when energy is at its peak. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when energy costs the most, is during
Yes.
those hours.
The peak hours. Yes.
Mhm. So what this virtual power plant does, it collects the energy during the day, stores it in the battery, and when you
Mm-hmm.
come home at 3:30 or 4 o'clock and you turn on the stove and the computers and all the other appliances, the air, the energy management software
Mm-hmm.
directs that energy from the battery to
Mm-hmm.
those appliances. So
Okay.
it's drawing energy from the appliance, from the battery, from the
Mhm.
storage,
The
instead
storage. Mhm.
of the grid.
Okay.
instead of the grid. So as a result, you're not accessing energy from the grid when it costs the most. And so what this does, this this allows us, when I say us, the United States, to stabilize our grid. Bear in
Yes.
mind, in 5 years, the grid is going to be overloaded. It's overloaded now, but it's really
Yeah.
going to be overloaded because we're bringing on EVs and we're moving away from combustible engines to electric vehicles. And so that's a lot of energy that is going to electricity that will be needed. So if we can take households and transition them to virtual power plants, it
Mhm.
will help stabilize the grid and it will help make the grid more resilient because
Mhm.
everybody isn't going to the grid at 4 o'clock for energy. They're going to
Right.
the virtual power plants. So this is why the Department of Energy is supporting virtual power plants. In fact,
Okay.
Department of Energy back in April, they gave Sonova $3 billion
Mhm.
to build 100,000 virtual power plants in underserved communities in Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah, yep, that's what they did.
You said how many virtual power plants in Puerto Rico?
Well, in the United States and Puerto Rico,
And Puerto Rico.
100,000
A
households.
100,000. Okay.
Households. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yep.
that's great. Okay.
And so the goal of the Department of Energy is to move as many households toward virtual power plants to stabilize the grid
The
as
grid.
they
Okay.
possibly can. Mhm.
Mhm.
And so we've created a coalition. We call it the Virtual Power Plant Coalition because,
Mhm.
again, we are the last to get this information. We are the last to access these opportunities. So, Colby Solar, if you go to our website, www.colbysolar.com, you can become part of our coalition, our virtual power plant coalition. Mhm. And that's what we are doing at Colby Solar.
Okay. That's wonderful. Wonderful. All right. So thank you for being a guest on our show this evening and sharing with us this timeless information and how this can benefit us not only economically but globally for the planet and for each household. So thank you for that.
Thank you for inviting me, sister.
Thank you. Yes. And I'd like to end the show with the meditative thought of the week, something we do every week. And it's just something, people to think about and reflect. So we are facing a climate crisis on our planet. Climate change is just one aspect, but daily we are faced with lots of environmental hazards created by pollution and contamination from unhealthy energy sources, including fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are not the best option for the planet or the people. Extracting it is unsafe, can have lasting harmful effects, and is not renewable. Solar, however, is a reliable, clean, sustainable, and renewable form of energy. The sun's energy can be harnessed and stored to create energy and electricity for us. Um, in this present dispensation in time, we have a duty to make better choices and decisions now that the options are there. We can choose harmful substances or sustainable, safer ones. So choose wisely, family. And until next time, remember your light in the darkness. I appreciate and love each and every one of you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for joining us. We got somebody in the chat. Dia said, thank you so much. And we thank you for watching and supporting. And reach out to Mr. Lloyd Wynn, colbysolar.com. Get more involved in symposiums and seminars and things in your community where it comes to renewable energy. And it's something that we all can get involved with. So until next time, We'll see you next Monday, 7 p.m. Peace and love, everyone.
Peace.